Welcome to Paris. This city is the capital of France and is home to just over 2 million residents. Twinned with the equally beautiful city of Rome and Italy, in this video I'm going to share all of my very best travel tips from all of my years living here and being married to a local. Paris is divided into 20 districts which are known locally as arrondissements. When you're planning your itinerary, it can actually be a good plan to stick to one kind of area per day, as then you're not going on and off the metro and wasting valuable exploration time. Always say bonjour when you're entering a store. This means hello in French, and if you don't do it, it's actually seen as the height of rudeness, and you'll definitely find that shopkeepers are way more friendly and happy if you say bonjour when entering their store. This might be a bit of a controversial take, but I actually think the best time to visit Paris is in the shoulder seasons, which is spring and autumn. This way you get the best weather, you get the fewest people around, and the hotel prices are way lower than during the summer months. July is generally the busiest time to visit Paris, as this is when lots of crowds converge during the school holidays. However, by contrast, August is quite a quiet month, as this is when many Parisians take their breaks, and so if you visit during this period, you'll find the city is quite empty, but conversely, lots of your favorite coffee shops, cafes, independent boutiques and bars will probably be closed for the holidays. You should call 112 if you have an emergency. This is the European number for emergencies, and operators speak English. Pharmacies are always easy to identify because they have big green pluses over them. If you do need to get painkillers like ibuprofen or paracetamol, then you can get them behind the desk at the pharmacy. You can't actually just pick them off the shelves as you can in many other countries. And on that note, you also can't pick up painkillers at many supermarkets, which is also obviously not the case in other countries. If you need a 24-hour pharmacy, then you can go to Republic, or alternatively, there's another one on the Champs-Élysées. If you have a non-urgent medical problem and need to see a doctor or some kind of other medical specialist, there's this really handy app called Doctolib where you can book appointments online. More often than not, you actually have to pay to use public toilets, apart from if you can manage to find a Sani set like this one. If you do need to use the toilet and you do need to pay for it, be sure to have a bit of spare change on you, as most don't accept card payments. Great tip if you happen to be in an area with a department store is if you go in a department store, they often have free toilets. When you think of Paris, you're probably imagining all of the beautiful Haussmannian architecture, but the truth is there's many more architectural styles to discover. For example, if you come to Montmartre, you can enjoy all of this really beautiful rustic architecture. If you head to the 16th and 7th arrondissements, you can also find lots of Art Nouveau. Obviously, you should wear what you want when you're a tourist and you're visiting a place, but one thing you should know is that berets aren't really a common fashion statement here. Apart from a few older chic ladies, it's not a really common thing to wear among younger people, and so if you do wear one for your photos, videos, it will definitely single you out as a tourist, which isn't a bad thing, it's just that you should know that. When you come to Paris, no one is going to expect you to speak perfect French. However, a few words in the local language can go a long way. Thank you, sorry, please, goodbye, a great place to start. You can even bring along a French guidebook, or alternatively have a handy list on your phone to help you get by. Be sure that you always carry a reusable water bottle with you, because free fountains for drinking are available all across the city. If you're lucky, you might even find one of the sparkling water ones. France uses the euro, which it has been doing since 2002 and is commonly in use across many European countries. If you go to some very old school restaurants, you can actually sometimes find the franc conversion printed on the menu, as this was what was in use prior to the euro. ATMs are readily available across Paris, so don't feel the need to take out too much cash. There's actually been a law since 2015, which means that you often can't pay for big purchases of more than €1,000 in cash anyway, so there's no point in really carrying it around. The cheapest, fastest and most efficient way to get around is by using the local underground system, which is known locally as the metro. A single ticket costs €2.50, and as of recently you can actually download tickets straight onto your smartphone using the Ile-de-France mobility app. Unfortunately, unlike most European cities, you still can't use contactless bank card directly at the ticket barriers. It's so handy now because you can literally use your phone to tap in. Thought that wasn't going to work for a second. The metro is also like pickpocket central, so always keep a close eye on your belongings. You're allowed to sit on these folding chairs, but if it's really busy, you have to get up. This is the best, and it's the deepest metro station in Paris. For the most part, you can just take the stairs to get out of the metro, but this one in particular, you want to take an elevator because it's so deep underground and there's hundreds of steps to reach the top. And we even have this one to ourselves.
Départ vers sortie.
Like many European cities, Paris is best explored on foot, and due to the abundance of cobblestones, I definitely recommend wearing flat, comfortable shoes and avoiding heels altogether. Under most circumstances, I don't recommend renting a car. The parking is really tricky, the traffic is horrible, and the driving style is probably not what you're used to. Antoine also wanted me to point out that you can rent these electric mopeds, but you should only do this if you feel comfortable with driving and you have to have a valid license. There are several applications that will let you do this, but we often use the Coulter one because they have 2 helmets included. Ubers and taxis are readily available, but to be honest, they're often slower than taking just the metro because of the sheer amount of traffic. When you get in the taxi, make sure that they're running their meter and that they accept card payments. The other thing to watch out for is the tariff between the airport and the city centre, because yes, there are fixed tariffs, but it can happen that the taxi drivers will tell you the wrong ones, or they'll tell you elevated ones, or they'll say it doesn't exist. So do your own research and don't really trust what the taxi driver tells you, because this has happened to me before. There are several types of crossing and ways you can cross the road. The first is just a simple zebra crossing, which you're meant to get priority on, but I just got a video of someone who almost ran me over. So do be careful before you step onto these because cars often don't stop, especially bicycles. The other way to cross the road is to use the light with the little red or green man. You don't actually have to press any buttons, it happens automatically in Paris. The love padlocks that you see everywhere are actually really bad for most of the monuments that they're on. For example, the Pont des Arts used to have loads, but the actual weight of them was destroying the structure, and so they're no longer allowed. And this sign here says no hanging of love locks. If you have more than a few days to spare in Paris, then you'll probably want to take a day trip. The most popular option is to head out to the Palace of Versailles, but some of my favorite hidden gems include the medieval town of Provins and the beautiful town of Auvers-sur-Oise, where Van Gogh spent his last weeks. We have videos on both of those destinations. While you definitely should check out some of the larger museums like the Musée du Louvre and the Musée d'Orsay during your stay, there are definitely some other smaller hidden gems of museums which are worth checking out. For example, I particularly love the Musée de Montmartre, which is a former artist atelier turned beautiful museum. Many places are actually closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. For example, the Louvre, which we're just outside of, is closed on Tuesdays. And so when you're planning your itinerary, do be sure to check this in advance that the place you want to go is actually open. The same concept actually applies to restaurants. Many of the more popular ones are actually closed on Sundays, Mondays, or Tuesdays, or all 3. Be sure to book tickets in advance for popular attractions such as the Louvre Museum, the Musée d'Orsay. You often now have to choose a time slot, and you have to be there a bit ahead of the time slot in order to actually access the museum at the correct time. The same can be said of Versailles. When you're planning your visit to the Louvre, don't try and see everything in one go. This is the largest art museum in the entire world, and so it would be impossible to see it all in one day. Of course, you want to see the highlights like the Mona Lisa, the Winged Angel of Samothrace, but when you actually get inside, do try and stick to a theme or a particular wing, otherwise you could end up being just overwhelmed. Paris has several triumphal arches. Obviously, the most famous one is the one that borders the 8th and 16th arrondissements, but my particular favorite is the Arc de Triomphe du Carrousel, which sits right next to the Louvre. Paris has an amazing park culture. There are actually 421 municipal parks in the city, comprising over 250,000 trees. Depending on the time of the year you visit Paris, the first Sunday of the month sees Free Museum Sunday, and this is where anyone can go to the museum for free at participating museums. This includes the Rodin Museum, the Musée du Louvre, the Musée d'Orsay, and the likes. There is a lot to choose from. The only thing to bear in mind is that these areas can get really busy, so it's best to arrive as early as possible on this Sunday in order to get a place in line and not have to queue for too long. This is somewhat of my own controversial opinion, but I don't think that the best views of the Eiffel Tower can be found from the top, and it's because when you're at the top of the Eiffel Tower you obviously can't see it. Instead, I really like the views at Montmartre. I like the view from the Galerie Lafayette rooftop terrace and from a number of other places in the city. There's a law in France that means that all churches have to be free. This includes the Sacré-Cœur and of course Notre Dame. If you want a full guided tour of Notre Dame, we've actually got a video on our channel. A great rainy day activity is to explore the covered passages of Paris. These are the precursor to modern shopping malls. There were once over 150 in the city, but now just a dozen or so remain. Nevertheless, they're definitely a portal to the past and are really wonderful to admire. Look at all of the beautiful details. This is La Maison Rose and it's one of the most famous cafes in Paris. This is closed on Mondays and Tuesdays, which just goes back to what I was saying about restaurants often being closed on days where you might want to go. When it comes to more popular places, tables book up fast, so be sure to reserve a table ahead of time in order to avoid disappointment. Tap water is always free at Parisian restaurants. The quality of tap water is amazing in Paris and you can always drink it. So if you want to get free water at the restaurant, you just need to ask for un carafe d'eau. Despite being called cafes, many places actually stop serving hot drinks in the evenings as they'll expect that you'll get some kind of soft drink, wine, beer or a cocktail. French people tend to dine quite late and dinner can often start as late as 8 p.m, leading to as far as 9 or 9:30 p.m, which means that most restaurants don't open till at least 7 p.m, which might be a lot later than what you're used to back home. Most establishments actually stop serving food between lunch and dinner. If you want to find one that serves food all the time, then you need to look for a sign that says service continue. Service is already included in the price of your meal by law, and so you should never feel obligated to leave a tip unless you really feel like it. Even at more expensive restaurants, it's not necessarily expected that you'll leave a tip, but it's always appreciated. It goes without saying that you should probably sample some French cuisine during your stay in Paris. A great affordable option is one of the bouillons. I hate to say it, but the best quality coffee often can't be found on the corner side terraces. Instead, you'll want to come to a specialty coffee shop like Maison Kitsune. Here, you can find all kinds of good specialty quality coffees. Another great hack for always finding a good coffee shop is to type flat white into Google Maps, and that will lead you to a lot of specialty coffee shops wherever you are. Though France might be legendary for its bread, not all baguettes in the city are created equal. If you want to find really good bread, then you should go to a boulangerie and definitely avoid the ones at the supermarket because they can be a little on the dry side. In order to be called a boulangerie, by law, the bakery has to bake the bread on site. Similarly, in order to be called a patisserie, the patisserie itself has to employ a master patissier. If it's warm and sunny when you come to Paris, which hopefully it will be, then a great and affordable option for lunch is actually to have a picnic in the park. Some parks allow you to sit on the grass, but for the most part you're not allowed on the actual grass. Instead, they have these really beautiful green or blue chairs that you can sit on and enjoy and soak up the sunshine. If I could give you just one tip, it would be not to book your accommodation right next to the Eiffel Tower, and that's for several reasons. Firstly, it's not actually in the center of Paris, and so you won't actually be able to get around really easily. The next is that the public transportation options in that area aren't actually that great. Instead, I recommend staying in Saint-Germain-des-Prés, in the Latin Quarter, or in Le Marais. Plan your accommodation ahead of time because the best places with the best prices and the best deals always sell out fast. Factor in the tourist tax when booking your hotel because it's not always included in the price and can cost up to €15 per person per day. When it comes to travel scams, it's worth noting that Paris is generally quite a safe city. However, the one thing that you should always be watching out for are pickpockets. They often like to target people who look like tourists because they're in tourist areas or in really crowded areas of the metro. We've actually got an entire video on our channel about Paris scams and how to avoid them, so check that out while you're on our channel. My final tip is not to try and see everything in Paris in one go. This is a city that deserves to be explored, so definitely leave yourself time to explore some of the lesser known areas like Canal Saint-Martin or the second arrondissement. And finally, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more travel videos, because if you like this video, you'll probably like this video about Paris too.